Hey guys, I'm Sophie, and I spent the last 7-8 years building novel digital user experiences in insurance and building up a tech startup / insurance company. And I came here today to share some learnings from that. Some concrete, some more abstract and philosophical, about kind of new digital behaviors from digital consumers in insurance. So I hope it's useful to you. I didn't really know what you wanted to hear about, so I brought what I hope would be useful, but feel free to put in some questions. I don't mind talking about any aspect of the company, so fire away, and then we can talk to what you really want to hear about. So the company I founded along with 3 other people 7 years ago is called Undo. And I know that there are people here who probably know a lot about it. There are people here who never heard about it. So I'll try to see if I can take you through it without sort of boring the former or confusing the latter too much. We'll see if I can strike that balance. But Undo was a tech startup that has this mission. We wanted to radically raise the expectation of insurance for a new generation by putting effortless insurance into the hands of the user. So as you can see, raising the expectations, there you have kind of the completely new product experiences and new way of interacting with insurance. And from the effortless insurance in the hands of the users, you get the kind of mobile first idea of seeing how we can make new experiences, deliver new value by starting with the mobile app. And back then, in 2017, when we said that we wanted to do an insurance app, most people discouraged that and thought it was the worst idea ever, because they felt that insurance was something you would never want to handle in an app. But we kind of hoped that we would see the same thing that happened with banks and mobile banks, where something went from something we thought we would never have in our hands to something that's just obvious to use your mobile phone for. So that was kind of the background. If I were to sum up the journey we were on in a slide, we were 4 tech entrepreneurs, none of us with any background in insurance, who founded the company back in 2017. We grew it. And last year reached 50,000 customers, 150 million gross written premium, that's in Danish crowns, and a steep growth rate. And that's all organically, as in without acquisitions, in the Danish market only. And we were about 85 people in the end. And it was basically a micro insurance company. So we had all the claims departments, but some of them were only 2 people because we were a really small company. We were most of all a tech company, but also kind of a fusion because we had those real claim handlers who came from actual insurance companies. Everyone else were from the startup ecosystem. So in that sense, it was the claim handlers were the only ones there to tell us what insurance was really about. And for that reason, it was really like a tech startup's approach to insurance. So we wanted tech to be our advantage in the market. And we addressed any problem you find as an insurance company with tech, whether it's too high a risk ratio or bad claims processes or whatever. We always try to build our way out of it. So in that sense, I think we came from with a different mindset and a different approach than most insurance companies would naturally. We built our own core system, and we built all our apps, and we actually also built the back office system that the claims handlers worked in. And we did that all on-site in our little team in Copenhagen. That means that the claim handlers were working in a system that the guy next to them was building, and you had a super fast feedback loop and a really different way of working as a claims team. And I'll get back to that a little bit later, because I'm hoping there are some things there that could be useful for you guys. Okay, so if we start with the consumer-facing apps, so getting people to use apps more in insurance, getting customers to use apps more. I want to share a few learnings that might be, at least surprised me and maybe show that some behaviors are changing in insurance. First of all, I should say that we sold all insurances through the apps, and we had like really good conversion rates and a pretty fast time to buy. So people were self-onboarding to our insurance. We didn't have any pre-made packages, so they had to kind of put together a package that fit themselves. So taking like fire insurance, water damage, theft, whatever, to build like their own contents insurance, for example. And the reason we did it that way was that we wanted to empower them. Because when we did all our research in the beginning, interviewing a lot of young people about insurance, which is an insane thing to do, don't try that at home. We had to lure them with wine and not tell them the subject before they came. What we found was that when you're really young and you're buying insurance for the first time, you don't understand anything about insurance, and maybe you get a call and someone sets up an insurance for you and you're well covered, but you don't understand what a contents package is. So when something happens, you have no idea if it's relevant, like if it's something that's covered or not covered. You get really nervous when something happens because you don't know if you will be like what if I drop my phone myself because I was clumsy? Will I be interviewed about that? Is that a bad thing? Does it mean I'm not covered? You just have no idea when you're like 21. So we thought the first idea was to actually let them put together the package themselves with coverages that all had a name that was something you could absolutely understand, like fire insurance, water damage, and that they would then internalize what they had bought. They would feel like they were taking charge of their own risk, and they would be able to use the insurance better when it came to it. So that was kind of the basic idea. So this brings me to one of the first things, which was, in the beginning, we talked a lot about engagement. Like, is engagement relevant in insurance? Because usually that's why you build an app, because you want people to engage with your product. And we quickly decided that people probably didn't want to engage with their insurance company any more than they needed to. And we definitely didn't want them to do it for our sake. But what we found along the way over those 7 years was that there were a few places where we could build something that drove engagement, but really gave value and was relevant for people. So I have two examples. One is the travel insurance we built. So it was a pay-per-day location-based travel insurance. So it's free when you buy it and free when you're in Denmark, which is where our customers live. And then when you leave the country, your phone sees that you left the country, it automatically starts. And when you come back, it automatically stops and you pay the bill. We had geo-fenced all the airports. So when you reach the when you get to the last metro stop in Copenhagen airport, your phone goes like, ding, you're at the airport. Are you traveling? Do you want to set up your insurance? Is it a ski trip? Did you bring your 7 best friends? Do you want to add them to your policy? And you could set it up. Or you could say, it's a work trip. I don't want to be covered because I'm covered through work. And that's a good example of something that's engaging with people in an app, something you can only do in a mobile app, and that really gave them value because they could customize their policy, they had comfort in the sense that they were covered and they understood how they were covered. I would say this meant that the niche customer segment of people who work at airports were not our customer segment, because if you could imagine anything more annoying than getting a ding, are you traveling every day as you get into work? That was not the segment for us, but there's not that many of those, so we survived. What was interesting about that was that this drove a lot of word of mouth. So when we called out people and asked how many they had talked to how many friends and family they had told about their insurance, this number was really, really high. It was around 90%, which shows that there's some commercial value to be gained from introducing novel user experiences. Another example is that we built a car insurance that had a telematics aspect. So basically, as you signed up to the car insurance, or you purchased the car insurance, you could opt in to do a 3 weeks test drive, where your phone would measure how you drove. So like, are you speeding? How are you swerving? How is your braking? Are you staying, are you following the rules, not using your phone while you're driving, and so on. And based on all of that, you would get a score, and that would be part of your price. So that would account for part of your price. And of course, the reason we did that was that we wanted to correlate it to claims in the end and see if we could kind of take that into our risk models. And we didn't get far enough to do that because you need quite a few years of data. But what I thought was interesting was that we could see that those who had taken the test drive were statistically significantly staying longer. Like, it had a big impact on retention. And I think that's a good example of something else where engagement drove value in an area where maybe all of us thought it would not. So that was about engagement. Feel free to put some questions if you want other examples. Another one, a little bit along the same lines, were the question of whether insurance could become something of a little bit more dynamic product. So at least for us, it was quite clear that insurance is like a set and forget product. You know, you set it all up and then you like go away for 10 years, and then when you buy a house, you like revisit it. And we wondered whether we could make people interact a little bit more dynamically with it. And we had this app where you could buy all these coverages, but you could also at any time remove them or add new ones. And it was really easy in the app. We also did some things to try to get people to start having that behavior. So for example, we tried to be really fair and say, if you remove your bike coverage halfway through the month because you sold your bike, we will immediately refund you for the rest of the month. So you never pay for something where you're not covered. So that could kind of teach people that there was some value in actually adapting their insurance along the way. And the data point I wanted to bring was that what we found was if we could get people to make some kind of change within the first week of having bought their insurance, which is quite common because, you know, you're buying all these coverages and then maybe your dad is like, don't forget to have a glass damage on your car, whatever. So it's quite common that people go in and make some little adaptation. And those who did that, they became a different kind of customer who were much more dynamic and more likely to change their policies when we then said, you know, now we have a new extra coverage you can buy, or we're introducing a new product, or we just want you to consider this coverage. They were much more likely to change it. So they had gotten this behavior of insurance is something I can change in my app. It's not scary. I can do it myself. I can make these decisions for myself. So I thought that was interesting as well. Okay, and then moving into claims, because I promised to talk about that as well. And I think the most interesting or different thing about us was this aspect that we kind of had a claims team that we treated as a little startup in itself. So you had all these claim handlers, and then you had a tech team fused into them, and together they were handling everything claims. And our claims handlers, we treated them like entrepreneurs. So they had, of course, their operations goals. They were handling claims all day, but they had 20% of their time simply allocated to reaching the company goals. So just like all our other teams, who are all empowered teams setting up their own goals, working on their own projects, they sat down every 3 months and they thought, how can we as a claims team help the company reach the big goals, be it commercial, efficiency, customer satisfaction, whatever it is. And they established and drove their own processes with their own KPIs. And when you have this situation where the people who are doing the operations, who are really, really far down into the claims, are also the people going up and thinking in the helicopter in this way, I felt that you saw a really, really incredible process with like a really you don't have any stakeholder management because the people you want to incorporate a new behavior of a new tool, they were the ones who decided to use the new tool. It was the claims handlers themselves who wanted to use Upptec. And we did we set up the pilot and implemented it in 1 day. And they ran all the experiments themselves, the claim handlers. And I think that's, oh, that was actually on the next slide. Yeah, I think that's a good example of if you can get your claims handlers empowered and get them to think like product managers, they will start to address problems in a completely new way. One of the last things we were building on was that for our first notification of loss flows that we had all built ourselves in the apps, we were actually rebuilding it to be like a Lego set where you could play around as a non-tech person, you could play around and reorder and introduce new questions in the claims flows. Because what we had realized was that it was so often that the claims handlers were the first to see that we were missing like one specific information to take this specific claims and do it as a one-off for the customers. So enabling them to put in new questions or change the order or like rephrase a question, because they will be the first to hear that no one understands question number 5 in claims flow, whatever, was kind of the next step for us that I was pretty excited to see. All right. That was actually what I had brought. And thanks for listening. And feel free to bring any questions.